All right, so today what we're going to do is we're going to look at section 12D, where we're going to be finding rules or linear patterns. Okay, so we're going to be finding rules which are all called linear patterns. And they're linear patterns because remember yesterday when we looked at those dots, they all lined up to make a straight line? Yeah? Okay. Well, that's exactly what we're going to do today is we're going to look at the rule that creates those patterns. So last time we were given a rule and we filled in the missing pieces in the table, right? Well, this time we're going to be doing just the opposite. We're going to have the table, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to do a little mathematics to find the rule. Okay? So, given values in a table, find the rule that created them. And as a little bit of foreshadowing, these are called equations. Now, I am going to write some things slightly differently than the book. They use different letters than I do, but it makes no difference. I'm going to put it in a format that we've seen before, and you're going to see a lot in your future too. So it just makes a little more sense to use it the way you're always going to see it, instead of using letters and then saying, ha ha, now you can change it to this, right? Okay, so the basic form of the equation, so this is the thing that you're looking for, is y equals mx plus b. So what you have here is an equation where the equation is solved for y. We know it's an equation because it has an equal symbol. And if you look at the letters, x and y simply mean the x and y of the point. So those are the numbers that are on your chart. You have x values and you have y values. But what you don't have on the chart is the letter m, which is right in front of the x, which means it's the coefficient of the x, right? And you don't have the letter b, which is some arbitrary constant. Often that letter b is, we say, c. Let's go ahead and just make it c, I'm sorry. And we'll call it c. C stands for constant. Constant just means a number. So when you see c used as a variable, it usually represents some constant number, so a value. So any number is a constant. Like 2 is a constant because its value cannot change. Right? Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to learn how to find that m, the coefficient, and that c. The y and the x, no big deal. But we're going to find because we'll have those from the chart, right? The chart gives us an x value and a y value. The top one being always the x value, the bottom one is always the y value. Now, so here's what we're going to do. Here are our steps. Now again, just hold off. Let me get through them, and then we'll look at some examples so you can see exactly how they're used. Your first step, okay, is to simply check your x values. So there's no math here. What we need for those x values, they need to be going up, so increasing, by 1 unit. So they could start with anything. So they could start at -4, but then they're going to go up by 1 unit. So if you have -4, the next would be -3, then -2, then -1, then 0, then 1, then 2, then 3, etc. Right? So they're going up by 1 unit. Okay? It's important that happens because that'll allow you to use this process to find the steps. If it doesn't happen, then it's a much more complex problem that's for another year level. Okay? All right. Second, you're going to find what's called the common difference. Now, we've talked about that word difference before. Difference means you're subtracting. Difference is the answer that you get when you subtract. So that if you're finding a common difference, then what we're doing is we're going to be subtracting, and the answer that we get when we subtract is going to stay the same every time we subtract. Make sense? So what you're going to do is you're simply going to subtract each y value. Now you've got to be careful, make sure it's the y values. They're the ones on the bottom of the chart, right? The x values are always going to be one apart. You're going to do the y values from the next y value. So you're simply going to take them in order. Remember, if you subtract a number from that number. And the reason we use subtraction is because sometimes our answer is going to be a positive and sometimes it's going to be a negative. And it's important that we know what sign it is. And if you use subtraction, then you will always know what sign your answer is. And that sign is going to be important. You could just say, oh, it looks like I'm adding 2, I'm adding 2, I'm adding 2. And that's fine, but sometimes you'll be looking at it the wrong way and you won't get the right sign. Okay? So just think about it as subtracting. This one minus that one gives me what number? Okay?
So is that kept?
Okay. And that common difference becomes the coefficient of x, which we called m in the formula. Coefficient is just a multiplier, so it just goes in front. So we know one part of this solution. We know that m. And if it's negative, then you need to use a negative, right? Watch those signs. Now, but the coefficient of the x term is just one of the pieces that I don't know. I then have to find the c, or the constant term, if there is one. So the next step is there could be a number added or subtracted, okay, to the x term. So to find this number that can be added or subtracted, sometimes you can just look at it and see. But the easiest way to make sure that we know which value is to test using substitution. So let's talk about how that works. So, the first thing, plug in the first x and y values from your chart or your table. Okay? So whatever x is, you'll put it in place of x. Whatever y is, you'll put it in place of y. And remember, you're going to have a coefficient there, so the x has to be in a bracket. Okay? And again, you'll get those from the chart. You'll see exactly what's going on when we do some examples.
What's that? Plus one. Is that like
Next, you'll simplify it. Remember, simplify just means do the math. Okay? And the only thing there is the coefficient, so you're just going to multiply whatever number you just found, the common difference, times your x term. So, if the two sides of the equal symbol, two sides are equal, then you're done. The pattern is there. There is no addition or subtraction to do. There is no C. Okay? But if not, then ask yourself, what number could I add or subtract to make them equal? That's a question mark for those of you who already don't want to ask me. So, you're just going to look at it and say, so say I have 3 equals 2. Does 3 equal 2? No. But what can you do to a 2 to turn it into a 3? Add 1. So your C is simply plus 1. Right? So it's very simple. So what if you had 6 equals 10? 6 does not equal 10. So what can I do to that 10 to turn it into a 6? Subtract 4. Right? So it's just a matter of looking at the numbers and seeing what can you do, and you're always trying to change the x side, right? What can you do to that side to turn it into the other side, to the y? Okay? Then all that's left to do is simply write the rule. And remember, it's always in the form of an equation. All right. So we have a table of values, but we don't know the rule for it. So we're going to create the rule for it by following those steps. So first of all, always start by writing down what it is you're looking for. You're going to get some equation where y equals something times your x plus, and it's plus, but it could be negative, so that plus would then turn into a minus, so plus or minus, some constant, some number. So all we're going to do first of all is I need to see if my x values are one after the other. So negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2. So they are increasing by 1 each time, right? It's to find the next one, you just add 1. It's important, and it'll always be the case for these, but get in the habit of looking for it. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the common difference in my y values. Now these are marked T and D, but it's x and y. And you can, but when you finish it off and you write the actual rule, you should use T and D, right? But when we're just working it, we can use y equals mx plus c. So I'm simply going to take the first one from the second one. From the second one. So that's 9 minus 12. 9 minus 12 is negative 3. Signs are different, so you keep the sign to the larger and subtract the numbers. That's one of them, but let's do some more just to make sure. All right, now we'll do these two. So that's 6 minus 9, which is also negative 3. So do you see what's happening? We're getting the same value each time. So you could do another one. 3 minus 6 still gives you negative 3. So this is telling you that there is a common difference. And that common difference is negative 3. And the common difference becomes your m, the number in front of the number in front of your x. So now we have this part. So whatever that common difference is, it simply replaces your m. Okay? It just becomes the coefficient. Okay. Now that I've found that, I need to see if indeed there is a c, because there isn't always. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to test this first value. Now, you could choose another value. You don't have to use the first value, but it makes no difference because they all have to follow the pattern or none of them follow the pattern. So if you want to use another one, it's fine, but most people just choose the first one. So in place of x, I'm going to put negative 2. And in place of y, I'm going to put 12. So that gives me 12 equals negative 3 times negative 2. Right? So just pulling those values straight from the chart.
Why is it red? Because he wanted to.
Okay? Now, so that gives me 12 equals positive 6. Is that true?
Yes.
No, 12 does not equal positive 6. So I need to see what can I do to this positive 6 to turn it into a 12. No. We're going to add or subtract. What can I add or subtract?
Add 6.
I can add another 6. Okay? And then I get 12 equals 12. So that tells me that I need a C of positive 6.
So whatever that difference is to get to it, that's what
Okay? Well then, if it comes up, then you're fine the way it is. All right? Now, So your completed answer, written in the right format with the right letters, guys, is that D equals, negative 3t plus 6. And that's your equation. Because they use different letters. So when you're writing your answer, you need to use their letters. When you're doing the work, you can always just use the same thing. But when you put it back together, you'll use their letters.